Chapter 59:37 You are not the demon emperor. Sha Mo saw that Yun Chujio was silent, and his tone softened a little. Stop dreaming. To tell you the truth, you don't have the unique aura of the demon emperor, so it's impossible for you to be the demon emperor. Your top priority is to help me find the reincarnation of the demon emperor. When we reach the demon continent, it'll help you get close to the heavenly demon clan. I will give you a chance to practice the supreme devil scripture so that you can get rid of the corpse chi in your body. The unique aura of the devil emperor? Are you saying that the reincarnation of the devil emperor has a special aura? Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and asked. That's right. Otherwise, if every Tom, Dick and Harry would come and pretend to be the reincarnation of the devil emperor, wouldn't it be chaotic? Sha Mo said in a bad mood. Yun Chujio thought for a moment. It seemed that she was not the devil emperor. There was nothing to be disappointed about. She had never thought that she was the devil emperor. Di Baiming had originally suspected that Yun Chujio was the devil emperor. Now that he heard Sha Mo's words, he dispelled his thoughts and said, Sha Mo, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter if you can't take the mask away. If there's a chance, you'll get Shui Wuji to come over. Get Sha Mo to identify you. Sha Mo immediately became excited. Have you found the reincarnation of the demon emperor? Yun Chujio glared at him. Don't be too happy yet. Wu Zhi's head doesn't look like the figure you drew, and he doesn't have a red mole between his brows. Sha Mo said dryly, maybe His Majesty has changed his appearance after his reincarnation. It doesn't matter. Yun Chujio directly put him back into the spirit beast pouch. She looked at the red mask in her hand and threw it into the spirit beast pouch as well. This time, the red mask did not slip away. It seemed that he really could not bear to part with that old fool Sha Mo. After Yun Chujio and Di Baiming left the desert, Di Baiming said, in order to create the illusion that I have disappeared in the ruins of miracles, we will temporarily separate. After the trial ends, I will take the opportunity to leave. You have to be more careful in the 10 Directions Academy. Don't worry. If not, I still have the little grasshopper, Director Xiaofu, to protect me. Moreover, I will soon take in 2 masters as my backers. No one can bully me. Yun Chujio said with a smile. Speaking of taking in her master, Hei Shinjio then remembered that she had to get into the top 10 of the trial. However, she was not worried. Di Baiming was going to take the opportunity to disappear anyway. She would be able to get into the top 10 by keeping his Mirage Pearl. Di Baiming reminded her again, and then disappeared in a flash. Although Hei Shinjio was a little sad about leaving, she was already prepared for this. She did not feel too much about it. She took out a fruit and started munching on it. Sigh, only food can heal the trauma in the heart. This guy ate a few fruits. Just as he was thinking about where to go on the skeleton tiger, a group of people walked over from afar. She focused her eyes and saw that the enemy's paths were narrow. It was actually Jian Zhuyu and Xiao Lianxiao. Jian Zhuyu and Xiao Lianxiao saw that Yun Chujio was actually alone, so they quickly exchanged glances and then quickly walked over. Yun Chujio's eyes flashed and revealed an absent-minded look. Xiao Lianxiao sneered, Tisk tsk, Yan Qingqing, where's Beiyu? Could it be that he thinks you're too useless and left you alone? And that lackey, Ding Wenru, could it be that she was bitten to death by a demonic beast? Yun Chujio looked as if she was angered. None of your business. Do you want to fight? Come on, he'll kill you. Xiao Lianxiao was so angry that her face turned red. Yan Qingqing, you're courting death. She was about to make a move, but she didn't expect to hear a shout from afar. Stop. Chapter 59:38 Beiyu has disappeared. Xiao Lianxiao and the others turned their heads and saw a man walking over from afar. His face was extremely handsome, and the faint gloominess between his brows not only did not damage his charm, but it made people want to immerse themselves in it. Xiao Lianxiao frowned. Bai Yuechen, isn't this your cousin Lan Luochen? Why is he meddling in our business? Could it be that he wants to go against you? Bai Yuchen's expression was very ugly. Previously, he took the initiative to provoke Lan Luochen, but he was beaten so badly by Lan Luochen that it was unbearable to look at. He had lost all face. He came at the right time. He did not believe that the combined strength of 5 people would not be able to kill this wild bastard. Hei Shinjio secretly complained in her heart. Why did the blue dregs come? No, later she had to find an opportunity to escape so that the blue dregs would not see through her identity. While everyone had their own thoughts, Lan Luochen had already walked in front of everyone. Bai Yuechen took a step forward and said coldly, "What are you doing here? However, you came at the right time. Today is the day you die." Lan Luochen did not even look at Bai Yuechen. His gaze landed on Yun Chujio, and his scrutinizing gaze made Hei Xinjia's scalp go numb. However, there was no flaw on his face. He looked at Lan Luochen in confusion. Lan Luochen frowned slightly. For a moment, he was not sure about his own guess. Bai Yuechen saw that Lan Luochen ignored him and became even angrier. He slapped Lan Luochen's chest. Lan Luochen easily avoided his attack. His voice was somewhat cold. "I once promised grandfather that I wouldn't kill you. However, if you continue to be untactful, then I can only go and apologize to grandfather." Bai Yuechen heard his words and was both embarrassed and angry. However, he also knew that his cultivation level was far inferior to Lan Luchen's. He looked at Nangong Li and the others and said, "Everyone, let's attack together. As long as we kill this Lan Luchen, I, Bai Yuechen, will owe you a favor." Nangong Li and the others looked at each other. Killing Lan Luochen was beneficial to them, but not harmful. After all, the Bai family was the one who suffered the loss, so they couldn't ask for more. Just when both sides were at daggers drawn, someone ran over from afar. "Qing Qing." The people who came were Ding Wenru, Nangong Shi, and Jiang Shuangli. The 3 of them were worried about Yun Chujio and Di Baiming's safety, so they had been waiting in this area. They were naturally very happy to see Yun Chujio safe and sound. Ding Wenru ran to Yun Chujio. Seeing that she did not look well, she asked with concern, "Qing Qing, what happened to you?" Yun Chujio's tears immediately fell one by one. She hugged Ding Wenru and cried, "Sister Ding, Beiyu is missing. Sister Ding, Beiyu is missing. Beiyu is missing. Something must have happened to him." Sob, sob, "I don't want to live anymore." "What? Beiyu is missing?" Everyone was stunned. Could he be dead? Xiao Lianxiao immediately said angrily, "Yan Qingqing, what nonsense are you talking about? What happened to Beiyu?" Jian Juyu, who was at the side, also looked anxious. "How did he go missing?" Yun Chujio pointed at the desert behind her. He said that the demonic beasts outside did not pose any challenge to him and insisted on going into the desert. "He asked me to wait for him here, but it's already been a few days and he still hasn't come out. Could something have happened? Woo-woo, you guys came at the right time, let's go in and look for him." Jian Juyu, Xiao Lianxiao, don't you guys also like Northern Yu? Since that's the case, you guys can go in and look for Northern Yu with me. Chapter 5939 turned out to be fake. Ding Wenru was confused. Didn't the 2 of them enter the desert together? How did it become this way again? However, she still cooperated and put on a surprised expression. "Is what you said true? Then let's go and take a look quickly. Don't really get into danger." Although Nangong Shi and Jiang Shuangli were as confused as Ding Wenru, they still cooperated and said, "Let's not delay. We'll go in and take a look now." Yun Chujio nodded and looked at Jian Juyu and Xiao Lianxiao, who had a conflicted expression on their faces. "Come with me. Although we usually have conflicts, it's more important to find Brother Beiyu now." Jian Zuyu's eyes flashed. The desert was extremely dangerous. Beiyu had not returned for a few days, so he was most likely dead. Since he was already dead, there was no need to risk going into the desert. Even Beiyu had lost his life. If she went in, wouldn't she be in danger? Xiao Lianxiao had the same thoughts as her. It was fine if it was a normal place, but the desert before her was extremely dangerous. Going in was no different from sending herself to her death. Besides, wasn't Beiyu blind to have taken a liking to this Yan Qingqing? Then why should she risk her life to save him? Yun Chujio saw that the 2 of them did not say anything and revealed an angry and incredulous expression. "You, what do you mean by this? Didn't you say that you were so sincere and deep in love with Beiyu? So it was all fake. You 2 hypocritical women. Sister Ding, let's go in. Brother Beiyu is mine. If others don't save him, I'll save him. Jian Zhuyu and Xiao Lianqiu's faces immediately turned red. Jian Zhuyu explained, it's not that we don't want to save Beiyu, but a few days have passed. The desert is so dangerous, and there's a high chance that Beiyu is already dead. If that's the case, why should we take the risk? Hearing her words, Xiao Lianqiu immediately felt confident. Right. Beiyu might have already met with an accident. It's not worth risking our lives. Moreover, there are still 4 hours before the trial ends. If Beiyu is fine, he will naturally be sent out. We don't need to take the risk. Yun Chujia's face was full of ridicule. You don't have to say so much to me. In the end, your love is fake and conditional. To think that you still have the face to compete with me for Beiyu. Sister Ding, let's go. Yun Chujio said and turned into the desert. Ding Wenru, Nangong Shi and Jiang Shuangli followed, also into the desert. Jian Zhuyu and Xiao Lianqiu looked very ugly. It would be best if the 4 of them also died in the desert. Bai Yuchen's attention was not on Yun Chujio and the others. He had been staring at Lan Luochen. Now that Yun Chujio and the others had left, he said viciously, everyone, since Beiyu is already dead, we don't need to worry about him anymore. Help me kill this bastard first. As soon as Bai Yuechen finished speaking, before Jian Zhuyu and the others could react, Lan Luochen had already grabbed his neck. Lan Luochen used a little force, and Bai Yuchen's face turned red. His eyes bulged slightly, and he looked like he was about to die. Jian Zhuyu and the others couldn't help him, so they could only shout at the side. Just when they thought that Lan Luochen would really strangle Bai Yuechen, Lan Luochen let go of Bai Yuechen and said coldly, Bai Yuechen, this is the last time. If you mess with me again, you have no reason to live. Chapter 5940, Beiyu is dead? After Lan Luochen finished speaking, his gloomy eyes swept over Jian Zhuyu and the others before he left. Jian Zhuyu and the others did not dare to move. In that instant just now, a great fear rose in their hearts. It was as if in front of Lan Luochen, they were like ants that were at the mercy of others. Bai Yuechen coughed violently. It was not easy for him to catch his breath. He stared at Lan Luochen's back with his red eyes, his expression ferocious. On the other side, He Xinjiu brought Ding Wenru and the other 2 into the desert. However, they did not go deep into the desert. They only walked around the edge of the desert. Qingqing, did something really happen to Beiyu? Ding Wenru asked with concern. Yun Chujio shook her head. I don't know either. In any case, he has gone missing. Ding Wenru naturally did not believe her nonsense, but it was not appropriate for her to ask. Yun Chujio took out the corpse of a demon beast from the desert and smeared the blood on the 4 of them. Then she said, we've been attacked by a demon beast. It's too scary. Let's run out quickly. After saying that, Yun Chujio turned around and ran back. As she ran, she shouted, help! Help! Ding Wenru and the other 2, Jian Zhuyu and the others heard the cries for help from afar. They looked at each other and ran in the opposite direction. They had no obligation to save Yan Qingqing and the others. It would be better if they died. Therefore, when Yun Chujio and the others ran out, the original place was already empty. Yun Chujio pursed her lips. It was effortless for her to deceive these idiots. After a while, it was time for the trial to end. The people who participated in the trial were all bounced out of the ruins of miracles. President Gu of the 10 Directions Academy, President Yu of the Divine Enlightenment Academy, and the others were all waiting anxiously, hoping that their students would get good results. Therefore, as soon as the students were sent out, there were people who counted the number of fantasy beads each of them had obtained. At the same time, they asked expectantly if anyone had gotten lucky. The students shook their heads, indicating that they had not encountered any opportunities. President Gu and the others were disappointed but also puzzled. It didn't make sense. Every time they participated in the trial of the ruins of God, there would always be students who obtained opportunities. Why didn't there be any this time? He Xinjiu pursed her lips in her heart. Of course there wouldn't be any. That damned bone spirit had spent all her energy on dealing with her, so how could she have the leisure to set up any op? Sooner or later, She would grind that damnable bone spirit into powder and turn it into a little bastard. While cursing the bone spirit in his heart, this fellow pretended to be anxious as he looked around. He didn't see D. Biming's figure. He must have used some method to escape. This fellow immediately ran in front of President Gu and howled, "President, President, Big Brother Bayu didn't come out. Open the ruins of God's miracle again. I want to go in and find him." "What did you say? Bayu didn't come out?" The president looked around and indeed didn't see Bayu. His heart immediately sank. Did something happen to Bayu? At this time, Ding Wenru stepped forward and added, "President, Bayu didn't come out after entering the desert in the ruins of Miracle. I'm afraid he's already." He Xinjia's howl became even more tragic. It was heartbreaking to hear and tearful to hear. President Gus' head buzzed. Bayu was the top student of the 10 Directions Academy. How could he be killed? Chancellor Ren and the others were also shocked. After carefully counting the number of people, they finally confirmed that Bayu did not come out. They were basically certain that he was already dead. That was because only the dead could not be sent out. Chapter 5941, Results After the Chaos. Everyone could only accept the fact that the number 1 genius of the 10 Directional Academy, Bayu, had died. He Xinjia was so heartbroken that she cried and fainted. President Gu shook his head and sighed. He never thought that Bayu would die in this trial. This was a great loss to the 10 Directional Academy. The people of the Divine Enlightenment Academy were gloating. With Baiyu's death, Lan Luochen of the Divine Enlightenment Academy was the one with the highest cultivation and the highest talent. If they were to draw a spiritual power competition, the 10 Directional Academy would definitely lose. Although they were sad, they still had to do what needed to be done. Soon, the statistics of the number of fantasy beads were completed. Looking at the results, President Gu and the others' faces turned even uglier. Among the top 50, there were only 15 students from the 10 Directions Academy. The first place went to Lan Luochen from the Divine Enlightenment Academy. He had obtained 20 more illusion color beads than Nangong Shi, who was in second place. This was because Ding Wenru had given Nangong Shi a portion of her illusion color beads. Otherwise, the difference would be even greater. President Yu from the Divine Enlightenment Academy was beaming. He smiled and said to President Gu, "President Gu, our results this time are better. Sorry for making a fool of ourselves." President Gu was so angry that he was twitching. He knew that President Yu was saying this on purpose to anger him. He was in a very bad mood right now, so he was not in the mood to bicker with him. He said lightly, "The price of a soldier is the essence, not the quantity." President Yu pursed his lips in his heart. Just die and keep your mouth shut. The most outstanding Bayu was already dead. The Divine Enlightenment Academy would definitely win this 100-year tournament. At this moment, someone behind them said weakly, "President Gu, I haven't handed in my fantasy pearl yet." President Gu turned around and saw the haggard-looking Yen Qingqing speaking. He said perfunctorily, "Since you haven't handed it in, then go over and hand it in." He had already seen Ding Wenru's results. Although she was not at the bottom, she was not able to enter the top 50 either. He estimated that Yen Qingqing's results should be about the same as hers. However, he soon heard the clamor of the crowd. "Oh my God, this Yen Qingqing actually became first place. Her cultivation is so low, how could she obtain so many fantasy beads? It must have been given to her by Bayu. Maybe Bayu took the risk to enter the desert to find the fantasy beads for her. It's all because of this mischievous person who killed Bayu. Yuri. She must have forced him to do it." Ding Wenru was furious. She saw that the few people who fanned the flames were people who were on good terms with Jianzhu. They must have been instigated by her. How shameless! She looked at Yun Chujio worriedly, only to see her crying silently and not saying a word. Ding Wenru secretly rolled her eyes. If she had not known this fellow all along, she would have thought that she had suffered a huge blow and had nothing left to live for. President Gus' mood was a little complicated. The first place belonged to the 10 Directions Academy, which was naturally something to celebrate. However, the first place belonged to a trash like Yen Qingqing, which was really unbelievable. President Yes' face froze for a moment, But then he thought about it. Yan Qingcheng's cultivation was so low that it wouldn't matter even if she won the first place. Moreover, the number of fantasy beads was used to calculate the results. The students' results added up corresponded to the Academy's results in the first round. The Divine Enlightenment Academy was far ahead in the first round. As long as there were no major mistakes in the second round, the first place in the 100-year grand competition would still belong to the Divine Enlightenment Academy. Therefore, he smiled and said, "President Gu, congratulations. Since the first round of the competition has ended, let's draw the second round of the competition." Chapter 5942. I want to see my master city. Lord Murong had already prepared the items for the drawing of lots. 6 balls were placed in a black jar. The jar and the balls were made of materials that could isolate spiritual sense, in case someone cheated. The decibel of the 6 balls were written with spiritual power, artifact refining, pill refining, array formation, beast taming, and talisman making. President Gu and President Yu each drew 1. City Lord Murong drew 1. The 3 items drawn were used as the second round of the competition. President Gu prayed to the gods and Buddhas in his heart. He must not draw the spiritual power item. Once Beiyu died, no one from the 10 Directions Academy would be a match for Lan Luochen. However, what he was afraid of came true. The ball in his hand had 2 big words written on it: spiritual power. President Gu could not help but smile bitterly. It seemed like the 10 Directions Academy was going to lose the 100-year competition again. After losing the last 100-year competition, the 2 people at the back of the mountain scolded him so much that they almost beat him up. This time, it was likely that they would not be able to escape this calamity. He turned his head and saw that President Yu had drawn the pill refinement while City Lord Murong had drawn the talisman refinement. President Gus's smile became even more bitter. These 2 items were not the strong points of the 10 Directional Academy either. It was like adding insult to injury. President Yu was in a very good mood. He felt that he had already won the 100-year competition. How could he not be happy? President Gu, I am looking forward to the second round of the competition tomorrow. It will be very exciting. It will not be in vain for so many people to come and watch the ceremony, President Yu said with a smile. President Gu squeezed out a smile and said, "Yes, I am also looking forward to it." At the thought of embarrassing himself in front of all the major forces and being scolded by the 2 Grand Elders, President Gu could not live with himself anymore. He said a few words of courtesy perfunctorily and brought the people from the 10 Directions Academy back to their quarters. He paced back and forth in the room with a gloomy face. No matter how he thought about it, he felt that there was no chance of winning this 100-year competition. It would be great if nothing happened to the Northern Army. At this moment, a guard came to report, "President, Yan Qingcheng requests to see you." President Gu was in a bad mood, but he did not want to see her. Thinking about how Beiyu had just died, this little girl was really pitiful. He sighed and said, "Let her in." A moment later, Hei Xinjiu, whose face was pale and her eye. Before she could say anything, she began to cry. President Gu was upset by her crying, so he couldn't say anything harsh. He could only comfort her. The world is unpredictable. Besides, the path of cultivation is full of dangers. Don't be too sad. Yun Chujio wiped her tears and sobbed, "President, I want to see my master. I want my master to find a way to save Beiyu. Beiyu is definitely not dead." President Gu, he had forgotten about this. Back then, he had said that as long as Yan Qingcheng entered the top 10, he would let her meet the 2 Grand Elders. Now that she had brought up this matter, wasn't it just adding to the mess? He said perfunctorily, "The ruins of God's miracle opens once every 100 years. Even the 2 Grand Elders can't do anything about it. Give up on that thought." President Gu, you must be lying to me. My master will definitely have a way. I get it. You just don't want me to see them, right? Are you trying to intercept Huor because of my outstanding talent and take me in as a disciple before they do? President Gu, this guy had reached a new level of shamelessness. How blind was he to want to take her in as a disciple? Chapter 5943's aptitude was average. President Gu took a deep breath and said, Yen Qingqing, it's not that I'm lying to you. The two grand elders are so elusive that I can't see them for the time being. Woo woo woo, woo woo woo. Even if I can contact them, the two grand elders might not be willing to see you. Woo woo woo, woo woo woo. President Gu was frustrated by He Xinjia's crying. He shouted, "All right, stop crying. I will tell the two grand elders if I see them, but I don't care if they see you or not." He Xinjia's crying stopped abruptly. "Really? You are not lying to me?" President Gu replied snappily, "Of course it's true. It's getting late. You should go back now." He Xinjia wiped her tears and left. Before she left, she said seriously, "President, you have to keep your word. You will be struck by lightning if you lie." President Gu, he felt that he had been extremely unlucky recently. One thing after another, he was really depressed. While he was thinking, the door was pushed open again. He thought that it was Yun Chujio who had come back, so he snapped, "Why did you come back again? Didn't I already promise you?" "You little bastard, who are you talking to?" President Gus' head buzzed. He looked up and saw that it was the two grand elders who had come in. President Gu complained in his heart, "Why are these two ancestors here? They must be here to punish us. It's over, I'm going to be scolded again." The short elder pointed at President Gus' nose and scolded, "I heard from that old geezer Chechen that after the first round, the Divine Enlightenment Academy had a lot of points ahead of our 10 Directions Academy. Is that true?" President Gu shrunk his neck and explained, "It's mainly because one of our most talented students has fallen. Otherwise, we would have more points than them. Stop talking about those useless things. What I want is the result, not the process. In the second round of the competition, what did you draw? Are you confident that you can surpass them?" President Gu did not dare to lie. He braced himself and said, "In the second round, we are at an even greater disadvantage. Not to mention surpassing them, I'm afraid we will fall even more." The short elder was obviously very angry. He kicked the coffee table to pieces. "Trash. Trash. All of you are trash. What use do we have for you? Chi Chen, that old brat, is going to mock us for 100 years again. If we had known this would happen, our primal institution would have taken in a few students. No matter how bad they are, they would still be better than this bunch of trash under our guidance." President Gu had suffered a lot today. After being reprimanded by the short elder, he felt a little uncomfortable and blurted out, "There are already students available. Why don't you give it a try?" President Gu also said it and regretted it. However, it was impossible to take back what was done. When he thought of Yun Chujia's crying appearance, he decided to make up his mind. Since it was already like this, there was no need for him to continue scolding her. The two old men were stunned. The short old man frowned. "What do you mean?" "The primal region took in 2 students by accident this year. Because of their average aptitude, I didn't dare to tell you too," President Gu said as he braced himself. The two old men had complicated expressions. Although they were unhappy that they had been hidden, they were happy when they thought that the primal region had a successor. To be honest, they had regretted it a long time ago. Back then, they had set the requirements too high, to the point that they had no successor even though they had the ability. However, due to their pride, they could not go back on their words. Now that they heard that the prehistoric branch had a student, they were naturally a little happy. Chapter 5944, Little Trash. As for what President Gu said about average aptitude, the two old men's understanding was a little off. They thought that it was because there was a gap between their requirements, but it should still be a high-quality aptitude. The short old man snorted coldly. "You're getting bolder and bolder. However, since you've already accepted them, then let us see them." President Gu did not expect things to go so smoothly. However, when he thought of the 2 only students from the primeval branch, he muttered, "Their aptitudes are really average. Please be mentally prepared, seniors." The 2 elders did not think much of it. If their aptitudes were really poor, how could they be qualified to participate in the 100-year grand competition? This little Gu Zi had learned to be humble. Seeing that the 2 of them took it to heart, President Gu did not say much. Anyway, when they met later, they would understand whether what he said was true or not. President Gu immediately asked someone to call Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru over, but he did not say what it was about. Ding Wenru was confused. Qingqing, what did the president ask us to do? Could it be that he wants to ask about Beiyu? Yun Chujio vaguely guessed a little, blinked her eyes and said, no matter what happens later, just follow my instructions. Ding Wenru naturally had no objections. She had the intention to cling onto her thigh. The two of them soon arrived at the temporary courtyard where President Gu was staying. After getting permission, they entered the study room. They saw President Gu standing respectfully at the side. Two old men sat on the chairs. One was tall and the other was short. They had white hair and a youthful face. They looked like masters. The eyes of the two old men fell on Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru. Their faces were dumbfounded. Even in their dreams, they had never thought that the average aptitude that President Gu mentioned would be so average. One was at the 8th level of the Divine Revelation realm, and the other was at the 1st level of the Divine Summoning realm? What kind of joke was this? Qingqing pays her respects to the two masters. He Xinjiu quickly saluted, and it was as smooth as flowing water. Ding Wenru was dumbfounded. However, when she remembered what Yun Chujio had told her before, she quickly saluted, but she did not dare to call them masters. Instead, she said, Ding Wenru pays her respects to the two seniors. The short old man was stunned for a moment. He pointed at Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru and shouted at President Gu, is this the average aptitude you said? These are clearly two good-for-nothings. You actually took in two good-for-nothings without telling us. You are really audacious. Today I must. President Gu had long expected this. He smiled bitterly and did not explain himself. Instead, he lowered his head and waited to be beaten. At this moment, he heard a sneer. The short old man looked towards the source of the sound. Seeing that it was Yun Chujio who was laughing, he said angrily, Little trash, what are you laughing at? Laughing at people who are laughing at funny things. Yun Chujio snorted and said. President Gu immediately scolded, Yan Qingqing, don't be rude. Hurry up and apologize to the two grand elders. Yun Chujio acted as if she did not hear him. She looked at the short old man provocatively with her red and swollen eyes. The short old man had always been able to do whatever he wanted. He was naturally furious when he was reprimanded by Yun Chujio. He released a terrifying pressure, wanting to teach Yun Chujio a lesson. Under the immense pressure, Ding Wenru fell to her knees. She did not want to kneel, but she could not withstand such a strong pressure. Even President Gu's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Although Yun Chujio's body was trembling, she straightened her back and stared fearlessly at the short old man. Chapter 59:45, You are an old trash. In fact, the short old man's pressure did not pose any threat to He Xinjiu. However, in order to not appear too abrupt, he pretended to be stubborn. The short old man gasped. He did not expect this little trash to have a bit of backbone and tenacity. He was actually able to resist his pressure. The short old man withdrew his pressure and sized up Yun Chujio with an unfriendly gaze. No matter how he looked at it, she was still trash. He snorted coldly, Little trash, tell me, who is the laughable person? What is the laughable thing? President Gu kept signaling He Xinjiu with his eyes, telling her not to spout nonsense. Otherwise, he would not be able to protect her. Yun Chujio acted as if she did not see it and laughed lightly, The laughable person is naturally you. The laughable thing was naturally done by you. President Gu almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This Yan Qingqing was really courting death. He hurriedly said to the short old man, Senior, please don't be angry. This Yan Qingqing is spouting nonsense because her beloved has died. Please don't lower yourself to her level. The short old man glared fiercely at President Gu. President Gu shrunk his neck and did not dare to make a sound. The short old man narrowed his eyes. Tell me, how am I funny? What funny thing did I do? If you can't convince me, I'll slap you to death. Ding Wenru looked at Yun Chujio worriedly. She prayed in her heart that Yun Chujio could come up with a fallacy. Otherwise, she would not be able to recover. However, Yun Chujio did not seem to feel the killing intent of the short old man. She still looked indifferent and asked instead of answering, "You two are both lecturers from the prehistoric institution, right?" The short old man snorted coldly. "Of course. Since you two are lecturers from the prehistoric institution, then you should have the self-awareness of being a teacher. Although Ding Wenru and I are not very talented, we are serious students from the prehistoric institution. As the saying goes, there is no discrimination in teaching. Yet you keep calling us little trash. Is this what a teacher should look like?" Just as the short old man was about to interject, Yun Chujio raised her voice and continued, "What's even funnier is that because of your narrow-mindedness, the primal chaos branch has been abandoned for thousands of years. You are the sinners of the primal chaos branch. Don't use the lack of qualified students as an excuse. This is clearly a cover for your laziness and vanity. Because of your inaction, the primal chaos branch has completely declined. As a result, its courtyard and belongings have been taken away by other branches. Because of your selfishness, the 10 Directions Academy had lost more than they had won in the last few hundred-year competitions. How could you still have the face to scold President Gu here? How could you still have the right to call me a little trash? If I am a little trash, you are an old trash." The short old man's face flushed red, and he nearly fainted from anger. He raised his hand and was about to slap Yun Chujio. How outrageous! This little brat was courting death. You want to beat me to death? Come on, I don't want to live anymore anyway. You caused the Primeval Sub-Academy to lose its inheritance. When I go underground and meet the ancestors of the Primeval Sub-Academy, they'll tell them about you. Let's see how you'll have the face to meet them in the future." The short old man was so angry that he was twitching. However, he couldn't keep his hand down. Although this wretched girl was detestable, what she said made some sense. In fact, he had regretted it a long time ago. However, because he had said too much back then, he had been hiding in the back mountain to cultivate due to his pride. As a result, the Primal Region branch had completely declined. Chapter 5946 Red-Eyed Little White Rabbit. The short old man glared at Hei Shinjio. It seemed unreasonable to slap her, but if he took it back, where would he put his face? At this moment, the little girl who had been arguing with him just now actually cried. "Woo woo woo master, I didn't mean to anger you. I was really wronged. You don't know that Ding Wenru and I have been ostracized by the other branches and suffered a lot of humiliation. Therefore, when I found out that I had a master, I was so happy that I almost went crazy. However, you called me a piece of trash and looked at me with disdain. That's why I spoke rudely. You won't be angry with me, will you? You will definitely forgive me, won't you?" The short old man was obviously dumbfounded by Hei Xinjia's sudden change in style. He was just as angry as a little lion, but now he had become a red-eyed rabbit? His hand that was suspended in the air immediately turned around and pointed at President Gu as he scolded, "Is what the little trash said true? The students of the Primeval Institution were bullied to such a state, yet you ignored them. What's the point of having you? President Gu, what did he do wrong? Why was he the one who was scolded in the end? Besides, didn't you not admit that they were the students of your prehistoric branch? Why are you standing up for them now? What kind of show is this?" When the short old man saw that President Gu didn't say anything, he scolded even more vigorously. "Say something. Do you think that we two old bones are useless, so you let the other branches bully the prehistoric branch? No matter how stupid they are still students of our primeval branch. How can they allow others to bully them? Little trash, tell me how they bullied you?" Hei Shinjio said in tears, "Our territory has been occupied by them, and they only left us a small courtyard. Previously, they had to occupy half of this small courtyard. If it were not for my desperate struggle, I'm afraid that the primeval branch would only have a plaque left. Also, the gate of our prehistoric institution has been splashed with dog blood and a lot of dirty things. The gate is in a mess, and they even blocked the gate to scold us. That's not all. They even said that the people of the prehistoric institution are all dead, and they are all useless." Seeing that Yun Chujio was getting more and more unreasonable, President Gu glared at her with a warning. The short old man happened to see it, so he immediately slapped President Gu and pushed him. "Why are you staring? You bastard! Little trash, continue talking. I want to hear how these bastards are bullying our prehistoric branch." President Gu was so depressed. He stood up and quietly stepped back to avoid any more unexpected disasters. "Master, you don't know that the 6 chancellors are going to jointly expel Ding Wenru and me. They also said that the primeval subdivision should have been abolished a long time ago. They said that the primeval subdivision is occupying the latrine pit and not doing anything. Anyway, if they want to bully people, they should bully people more." President Gu couldn't help but interrupt. "Yan Qingqing, don't exaggerate. It's not as serious as you said." Yun Chujio glanced at him and took out a shadow stone. "Master, look at the current situation of our primeval subdivision. There's only this small courtyard, and the territory has been occupied by the alchemy subdivision and the talisman subdivision. Did you see the drama on the gate? Also, the dirty things at the gate were all lost by the students of the other branches. If it weren't for me and Ding Wenru being smart, we probably wouldn't have been able to keep our lives." Chapter 5947, Filing a Complaint. When President Gu saw the image on the shadow stone, his head buzzed. This troublemaker had actually come prepared? No wonder she had ignored those students who had gone to the primeval institution to cause trouble. He had thought that this troublemaker had changed his personality, but it turned out that he had long been prepared to file a complaint. When he saw the content on the shadow stone, not to mention the short and hot-tempered old man, even the tall old man was so angry that his face turned ashen. Although President Gu had previously mentioned that the Primeval Academy's territory had been taken over by the Alchemy Division and the Talisman Seal Division, hearing about it and seeing it with one's own eyes were two completely different things. Especially when he saw the drama on the Primeval Academy's main gate and the mess at the entrance, how could he not be angry? Not to mention that there was also He Xinjiu who was adding fuel to the fire beside him. President Gu, who had a strong desire to live, saw that the situation was not good and quickly shifted the blame. "Seniors, please calm down. The previous president was the one who occupied the territory of the Primeval Institution. I also want to make things right, but I can't defeat the 6 chancellors by myself. I can only maintain the current situation. However, I still take care of Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru." After saying this, President Gu desperately winked at He Xinjiu. He Xinjiu found it funny in her heart, but she still said, "Master, President Gu really treats us well. Otherwise, we would have been expelled by the 6 chancellors." President Gu looked at Yun Chujio gratefully and continued, "Senior, although I am the president, I am still under the control of the 6 chancellors. There is nothing I can do." The short old man did not really want to beat President Gu up. He was so angry that he smashed the chairs and tables in the room into dust, which eased his anger slightly. "This is outrageous. I'm so angry. Call those 6 little bastards over. I want them to give me a good explanation," the short old man said angrily. President Gu wiped the cold sweat on his head and said, "Senior, now is the time for the grand competition. If we go to war, it will definitely affect the morale. Why don't we wait until we return to the academy?" "Affect my ass. We will lose anyway," the short old man said angrily. "Master, how can you raise the prestige of others and destroy the spirit of our own family? Besides, only 3 chancellors came this time, and 3 of them are guarding the house in the academy. If you want to clean it up together. We can't miss a single one. Besides if the people of the Divine Enlightenment Academy know about it, they will laugh at us. So, why don't we wait until we get back to clean them up and teach them a good lesson?" He Xinjiu advised. The short old man's heart skipped a beat when he heard that they couldn't expose their dirty laundry. Yes, if Qi Chun of the Divine Enlightenment Academy found out about this, he would be laughed at. It was better to go back to the academy. Although you are a good-for-nothing, you have some brains and are much better than some people. President Gu, who had been shot in the chest, at this moment, He Xinjiu gave Ding Wenru a look and the 2 of them cleaned up the ruins in the room. He Xinjiu took out tables, chairs, teapots, and pastries from her storage ring and said respectfully, "Masters, please take your seats." The two elders were quite satisfied with their tactfulness. The short elder glared at President Gu, who looked like a wooden stake, and said, "Watch and learn. You are like a block of wood." President Gu, who was shot again. The short elder drank half a cup of tea before saying, "Little trash, since you've already entered the primeval branch, we can only reluctantly acknowledge your identity as students of the primeval branch. However, don't go along with the flow and address us as master. I won't accept a disciple of a trash like you." Chapter 59:48, Was there a good-for-nothing like me? Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and said, "But, you even drank my master's tea. You can't deny it, can you?" The short old man almost threw the teacup in his hand at He Xinjia's face. He had seen shameless people before, but this was the first time he had seen such a shameless person. "Don't play tricks on me. I would never take in a student with such a poor aptitude like you," the short old man said with a twitch of his lips. The tall old man did not say a word. It was clear that he tacitly agreed with the short old man's words. Yun Chujio said aggrievedly, "Master, how am I a trash? I was first place in the Six Harmonies Waterside Pavilion competition previously. Also, I was first place in the Trial of Miracle this time. Is there a trash as outstanding as me?" The first thought that flashed through the short old man's mind was that Yun Chujio was lying. How could a trash like her get first place with her cultivation? What kind of joke was this? Unless the other students were all trash. President Gu recalled that Yun Chujio had helped her out previously and returned the favor by saying, "Senior, what she said is true. She did indeed obtain first place in both trials. If she didn't obtain first place in this trial of the Ruins of Miracles, our results would have been even uglier." The short old man narrowed his eyes and snorted coldly, "Is there something fishy going on here? Just based on her? I don't believe it." President Gu thought to himself, "I don't believe it either." But it was the truth. The tall old man pondered for a moment and said, "Little girl, could it be that Beiyu helped you?" Hearing the tall old man's words, He Xinjia's tears fell one by one. "Masters, will help me save brother Beiyu. He's definitely not dead. You two are so powerful, you must have a way to open the Ruins of Miracle again, right? Go in and help me find big brother Beiyu." The short old man glared at the tall old man in annoyance. He was really asking for trouble. The tall old man was also a little embarrassed and said, "Little girl, the Ruins of Miracle can only open once every 100 years. There's nothing we can do. Moreover, since he hasn't been teleported out, there's a high chance that, impossible. Big brother Beiyu will definitely be fine. He might have entered some place with an isolation array that prevented him from being teleported out. He must still be alive. You're all lying to me. Big brother Beiyu will definitely be fine." Sob 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 sob. The short old man was annoyed by her crying. He said impatiently, all right, stop crying. If you want to save him, then cultivate properly. You can go in and save him after 100 years. After all, to cultivators, 100 years old is still a little brat. Why are you so anxious? He Xinjiao finally stopped crying, but she was still sobbing. Her red and swollen eyes were as pitiful as could be. "All right, you two can go back. After the 100-year competition, I'll make the decision for you and deal with those bastards." The short old man waved his hand and said, Ding Wenru couldn't wait to leave. This old man was temperamental, so he didn't want to slap them to death again. However, Yun Chujio didn't move. She wiped her tears and said, "Master, the second round of the competition will be held tomorrow. I heard that there will be a competition of spiritual power, talisman making, and pill making. Shouldn't you two give me a special lesson? As the saying goes, if one grinds one's spear at the last minute, it will shine even if it isn't fast enough. What if the content you teach just happens to be the content of the competition?" The short old man didn't have the time to correct her address. In any case, if he didn't accept it, then he didn't accept it. It was useless for her to call him that. He said snappily, "What wishful thinking? Even if we are willing to teach, can you guys learn it?" Chapter 5949. Wager. The short old man felt that Yun Chujio was simply ignorant of the immensity of heaven and earth. In just a short night, she probably couldn't even learn the lowest level of jade talisman seals or medicinal pills, let alone advanced level talisman seals and medicinal pills. Master, how do you know that I can't learn if you don't teach me? Yun Chujio said unwillingly. The short old man saw her unconvinced look and curled his lips. Do you even need to ask? With your cultivation level, not to mention your comprehension ability, just your spiritual power alone is unable to support carving high-level jade talismans and refining high-level pills. Little girl, let me give you a piece of advice. A person must know his own limits. If he wants to run before he has learned how to walk, he will fall. Do you understand? Yun Chujio's little face sank. Are you really not going to teach me? The short old man was furious. What do you mean? Are you going to force me to teach you even if I don't teach you? Yun Chujio sneered. Ever since Ding Wenru and I entered the primal institution, you guys haven't done your duty as teachers. It's really disappointing. If you don't want to teach, then don't teach. What's the big deal? At worst, we'll go to other institutions to freeload for lessons. It doesn't matter even if we're scolded. After all, we're poor little people who have no one to care about us. Sister Ding, let's go. After Yun Chujio finished speaking, she dragged Ding Wenru and walked out. The short old man patted the coffee table. Stop right there. You've really gone against the heavens. You actually dare to shout at me. All right, since you don't know your place, I'll let you know what it means to know the immensity of heaven and earth. As the short old man spoke, he threw 2 goatskin scrolls to Yun Chujio. These 2 are high-grade black-grade jade talisman seals and pill refining formulas. If you can learn one of them within a month, I'll teach you. Yun Chujio took the goatskin scroll and flipped it a few times. One type? I am not that useless. Within a month, I will learn all the pill formulas and jade talisman seals on it. If I can't learn them, I will voluntarily scram back to the lower house. The short old man was so angry that he rolled his eyes. He had seen arrogant people before, but this was the first time he had seen such an arrogant person. Although high-grade black-grade was not considered a powerful formula, but a month. What a joke! Even if it was a student who met their requirements, it would take at least 1.5 years to 2 years. She could learn it in 1 month? What nonsense! However, since she wanted to slap herself in the face, he naturally would not stop her. At that time, he would just kick these 2 good-for-nothings out of the house so that he would not drag down his reputation. At this moment, he heard Yun Chujio ask, "What if I learn it in a month?" The short old man said contemptuously, "You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. If you can learn it all in a month, I'll take you as my disciple." Yun Chujio looked at the tall old man provocatively. "What do you say?" The tall old man was speechless. "If you really can do it, I'll take you as my disciple too. I have another condition. If I can do it, not only will you take me as your disciple, but you will also take Ding Wenru as well. Do you dare to agree?" Yun Chujio straightened her neck and said indignantly. The short old man felt that Yun Chujio could not do it at all, so he said without thinking, "Yes, I agree." "Okay, then it's a deal. Masters, you can't deny it when the time comes. If you lie, you will be struck by lightning." After Hei Shinjio said that, she did not care about their reactions and dragged the dazed Ding Wenru out of the study. Chapter 5950. Will she be able to do it? Qinghai. Ding Wenru's eyes were red and she did not know how to express her feelings. She did not expect that Yun Chujio would still think of her at this time. Regardless of whether she would succeed in the end, as long as she had the heart, she would be extremely grateful. Yun Chujio said nonchalantly, "We are good sisters. Naturally, we will share happiness and adversity together. If you have any good news, just don't forget about me." Ding Wenru nodded solemnly. "Ching, don't worry. As long as I, Ding Wenru, am around, I will do my best to protect you. If I don't keep my word, I will be struck by lightning and die a horrible death." The reason why the last oath was so smooth was because she had heard Yun Chujio say it many times, so she naturally said it. Yun Chujio grinned and said, Don't make such a vicious oath. If Nan Gongshi finds out, he will find me to settle the score. Ding Wenru's heart that was full of gratitude instantly turned into embarrassment and anger. She glared at her. Don't talk nonsense. We are just ordinary friends. Let's get down to business. Can you really learn it in a month? Although Ding Wenru had seen Yun Chujio's abnormal performance when she carved the Jade Talisman seal, it was only the lowest grade explosive Jade Talisman seal. It could not be compared to the high-grade black-grade Jade Talisman seal recorded on the sheepskin scroll. Moreover, she had never seen Qingqing refine pills. Could she do it? Don't worry. A month is more than enough. I'm not bragging. 5 days is enough. Hey, Shinjio said confidently. Ding Wenru, bragging doesn't pay taxes, right? Just keep bragging. On the other side, the short old man was infuriated by Yun Chujio's words before she left. He scolded, "This little girl is really audacious." President Gu was like a well-behaved little quail and did not dare to say a word. He was afraid that the short old man would settle the score later. The tall old man sighed. Let's not talk about that little girl for now. What about the second round of the competition tomorrow? According to the current situation, we will most likely lose. The short old man was annoyed. What else can we do? Just hang in there. Damn it, when I think of that old brat Chi-Chen's face, I get so angry. It's also because these little brats aren't up to par. They really make me angry. Just as the short elder was grumbling, a guard outside the door reported, President, the 3 chancellors and the 3 vice-chancellors request to see you. President Gu was not surprised by this. He guessed that they were here to discuss the second round of the competition tomorrow. Seniors, do you want to see them? President Gu asked tentatively. The short old man snapped, What do you want to meet them for? I get angry whenever I think of them. If I can't control my temper, I'll beat them up and let Chi-Chen watch the fun. Hearing that, President Gu could only say, Since you don't want to meet them, I'll have someone bring them to the living room. The tall old man pointed at the screen bookshelf and said, No need. There should be a secret room here, right? We'll stay inside to regulate our breath for now. After they leave, we'll have other things to ask you. The general study rooms in the Divine Enlightenment continent would have a secret room for meditation and rest. President Gu naturally didn't dare to refuse, so he let the 2 old men into the secret room behind the bookshelf. After President Gu had arranged everything properly, he asked the guards to invite President Ren and the others from the Alchemy Division into the study room. After President Ren and the others entered, they all sighed. It was nothing more than saying that they would lose the 100-year competition again. Headmaster Ren said unhappily, Speaking of which, that Yen Qingqing is really a shit-stirrer. She took the first place out of the blue and took a spot for no reason. Whether it is her spiritual power, alchemy, or talisman making, she is not good enough. These 2 trash from the primal institution are really occupying the latrine and not taking a shit. Chapter 59-51 Courting Death. As soon as President Ren finished his sentence, the chair that he was sitting on suddenly fell apart. He was caught off guard and fell to the ground. President Ren was embarrassed and angry. Just as he was about to complain, President Gu hurriedly changed the topic. Let's hurry up and discuss the specific countermeasures. President Ren looked at President Gu with some dissatisfaction but didn't continue. President Gu cursed in his heart, You're still not satisfied? I'm saving you. If you continue, I'm afraid you won't be able to see the sun tomorrow. In the dark, the short old man's face was ashen. He was obviously very angry. If it wasn't for the tall old man changing the direction of his attack, President Ren wouldn't have fallen to the ground so easily. At first, he thought that the little girl was exaggerating. But now, it seemed that these little brats were really going too far. He would let them jump around for a few days first. When they returned to the academy, he would definitely teach these little brats a lesson. The tall old man's face was also not very good. Although the 2 little girls were not very talented, they were still in the name of the prehistoric branch. These people really deserved to be taught a lesson. President Gu wanted to change the topic, but someone did not know what was good for them. President, Although those who enter the top 50 are qualified to participate in the 3 competitions, I don't think Yan Qingqing needs to go on stage and embarrass herself. Otherwise, the people of the Divine Enlightenment Academy will laugh at us for nothing, President Ren said disdainfully. Director Zhao of the Talisman Seal Academy echoed, yes, the reason why she can get first place is most likely because of Northern Yu. She is already a trash, so if she goes up, she will also be at the bottom. Why not go up? Director Ren and Director Zhao had annoyed He Xingjiu so much because of the exploding wall and the hanging of the board, so naturally, they did not have a good impression of her. The two of them talked back and forth, belittling Yun Chujio to the point that she was worthless. At the same time, they also ridiculed the prehistoric division. Although President Gu had changed the topic a few times, he could not help but ignore the two of them who were trying to court death. It was hard for him to persuade those damn ghosts, and they deserved it. The short old man in the secret room tried his best to resist the urge to beat them up. In his heart, he remembered President Ren and Director Zhao. President Gu waited until they were almost done talking before he said, "Don't forget, whether it was the selection test of the 6 Harmonies Waterside Pavili. Luck is also a part of strength. Moreover, she is a student of the prehistoric branch. There must be something extraordinary about her. Maybe she can give us a surprise." President Gus' words were completely against his heart. However, in order to curry favor with those two in the dark, he displayed an extremely strong desire to survive. When the short old man heard President Gus' words, he could not help but nod his head. No wonder little Gu was the president. She was indeed a little stronger than those idiots. President Ren curled his lips slightly. "President, don't put gold on her face." "Just her? I reckon that she hasn't even learned the yellow rank medicinal pills and jade talisman seals." Director Zhao echoed from the side. "That's right. I've heard that when she's in the talisman seal class, she often sleeps soundly. When she goes on stage, she'll definitely stare blankly like an idiot." President Gu was afraid that the short old man would come out and beat him up, so he hurriedly said, all right. Yan Qingcheng's matter ends here. Let's discuss other things." Chancellor Ren snorted coldly from his nose and then said, "All right, then let's not talk about that trash. Our alchemy division's Xiao Lianxiao has always performed well. Whether she can get a good result in the alchemy competition tomorrow will depend on her." Chapter 59-52, Jianjuyu from our talisman-making branch is also not bad. If she performs well, she can also obtain good results, Director Zhao said with a smile. He was quite satisfied with Jianjuyu. Not only was she talented, but she was also elegant and generous. She was indeed worthy of being the outstanding person from a big aristocratic family. After thinking for a while, he added, "In addition, although Ji Lingfeng is slightly inferior to Jianjuyu, he is also very good. If the two of them perform well in the Talisman Seal competition, we might not lose to the Divine Enlightenment Academy." Hearing their words, President Gu felt a little comforted. Although he would most likely lose, it was better not to make the situation too ugly. He looked at the silent Vice President Xiao and asked, "Vice President Xiao, do you have a better candidate for the spiritual power competition?" President Ji Yu's impression of Vice President Xiao had changed a lot recently because Vice President Xiao had changed from his usual arrogant and domineering attitude. He had been very low-key recently, and he had performed well at the welcoming banquet. In fact, he did not know that the 1,000-year-old corpse turtle emperor insect knew very little about many things. He was afraid of giving himself away, so he naturally kept a low profile. After hearing President Gus' words, he sighed. "If nothing happens to Bei Yu, I am confident that he will be able to obtain first place in the spiritual power competition. However, none of the remaining people are a match for Lan Luochen from the Divine Enlightenment Academy. They can only choose a few students with high spiritual power to go up and go through the process." President Gu also sighed. "Sigh, there's nothing we can do about it. Even if we can't get first place, we have to do our best and strive for a better ranking. After all, the top 10 places are rewarded with points." The crowd discussed some more details. President Gu saw that it was getting late, so he let the crowd go back. However, when they went out, for some unknown reason, Director Ren and Director Zhao were both tripped by the doorsill and almost knocked their front teeth off. Both of them were stunned. They thought that their cultivation was not bad. How could they be tripped by the doorsill? What the hell? President Gu found it funny. Needless to say, this must be the work of that person in the dark. This was just the appetizer. When they returned to the academy, they would suffer. Although he was the president, he was usually restrained by 6 chancellors. Seeing that these people were going to be unlucky, he naturally gloated. Moreover, why was he always the one being scolded? It was their turn. After Chancellor Ren and the others left with their faces covered in dirt, the 2 elders walked out from the dark with unfriendly expressions. The short elder cursed, "These little brats really deserve a beating. If I wasn't afraid of being laughed at by that old brat Chi-Chin, I would have beaten him until he vomited blood." President Gu didn't dare to make a sound at the side, afraid that he would be blamed. After the short elder cursed for a while, he said, "Is what those little brats said true? Is the little girl really unable to do anything? Will she only embarrass herself if she goes up tomorrow?" President Gu thought for a while before carefully saying, "It's possible that she has less opportunities to display her talents, so we haven't discovered any of her specialties yet." The short old man snorted, "All right, I know she's a good for nothing even if you don't tell me. Tell her tomorrow morning. If she's afraid of losing face, don't go on stage." Yes, this junior will remember it. Have you 2 seniors had dinner? Why don't this junior? We still have other things to do. Let's have a good competition tomorrow. Even if we lose, don't lose too badly. After the short old man finished his words, he walked away with the tall old man. I will not participate in chapter 59-53. President Gu wiped off the cold sweat on his head and let out a long sigh. These 2 had finally left. But when he thought of the second round of the competition, he sighed again. It would be great if there was a miracle, but could there be a miracle? Early the next morning, the people of the 10 Directions Academy followed President Gu to the second round of the competition venue. The second round of the competition was the highlight of this century-old competition. All the major forces and spectators had come for the second round of the competition. After all, they could not see the details of the first round of the competition even if they wanted to. The venue of the competition was set in the central square of Miracle City. This square occupied a very large area. It was originally built for the century-old competition. At this time, a spacious competition stage had been set up in the center of the square. There were a few seats around it and 2 rows of VIP seats were set up on the stage. Although the people from the 10 Directions Academy arrived earlier, the square was already noisy when they arrived. Ding Wenru saw that Yun Chujio had been mumbling and gesturing with her hands. She looked a little worried. After returning to her room last night, Qingqing had been reading a sheepskin scroll. She had not slept all night. Had she gone mad? The participants of the 10 Directions Academy naturally had their own seats. After they sat down, Yun Chujio took out the sheepskin scroll and started to read it again. However, this guy had put a speech book cover on the outside of the sheepskin scroll to disguise himself. When the surrounding people saw the words on the cover, their expressions froze. On the cover was written, "The Empress and her 3 palaces and 6 courtyards had no choice but to talk about the past." Could this Yen Qingqing have gone crazy because of Bei Ye's death? Otherwise, why would she read such an immoral speech book? Moreover, she was reading it here without any reservations? Xiao Lianxiao also saw it and pursed her lips. This Yen Qingqing had previously pretended to accuse her of not saving Bei Yu. In the end, before Bei Ye's corpse was even cold, she was reading these unrated speech books. How shameless! Jian Zhuyu, who was sitting next to her, was not as obvious as Xiao Lianxiao, but there was a flash of disdain in her eyes. Before President Gu took his seat in the VIP seats, he coincidentally caught a glimpse of the cover of the words book in Yun Chujio's hand. His expression immediately stiffened. Only then did he remember that he had forgotten the short old man's advice in the rush of the morning, so he coughed and said, "Yen Qingqing, come here for a moment." Hei Xinjiao was immersed in the contents of the sheepskin scroll and did not hear President Gus' words. Fortunately, Ding Wenru tugged at her. She stood up in a daze and walked over to President Gus's side. "President Gu, you were looking for me?" President Gu looked at her dazed expression and thought to himself, it seemed like the death of Bei Yu had really dealt a heavy blow to her. She was using a script to numb herself. What a pitiful child. President Gu softened his tone. "Yan Qingqing, if your condition isn't good, don't participate in the second round." Yun Chujio did not want to participate in today's spiritual power competition. She nodded. "Yes, I understand." "Thank you, President Gu." Seeing her nod in agreement, President Gu did not say anything else and turned around to leave. Yun Chujio returned to her seat and continued to read the sheepskin scroll. If she did not have to come, she would have stayed in her room to read today. She knew her own limits. If she didn't expose her background, she had no chance of winning today's spiritual power competition. Why was she looking for trouble? However, if she worked hard at tomorrow's talisman competition and the alchemy competition the day after tomorrow, she could give it a try. Thinking of the two arrogant old men's dumbfounded expressions, Hei Shinjio was full of energy. Chapter 59-54, Registration. Xiao Lianxiao pursed her lips and said to Jian Juyu beside her, "The director only said that so that she wouldn't be embarrassed." In reality, he was afraid that she would embarrass herself. With a trash like her, she would probably be beaten half to death if she went up. Once Bei Yu died, Xiao Lianxiao didn't feel so disgusted with Jian Juyu. Instead, she hated Yun Chujio even more because she felt that if it wasn't for Yun Chujio, Bei Yu wouldn't have died. Therefore, Yun Chujio deserved to die. Jian Zhu's eyes flashed and she said, "Yeah, if she went on stage, she would definitely lose face. She might even lose her little life on stage. It's just a pity, it looks like she won't sign up to participate in the spiritual power competition." Xiao Lianxiao complained somewhat disappointedly, "The dean is the same, why did he specially come to warn her? If the dean didn't say it, maybe that trash wouldn't know the immensity of heaven and earth to sign up." Jian Zhu's eyes flashed again, as if she inadvertently said, "If someone carelessly reported her name, it would be good. Maybe she would directly die on the stage." Xiao Lianqiao's eyes immediately lit up. To register, one only needed to register under the competition stage. There was a specialist to do the statistics. If she pretended to be Yan Qingqing and then reported Yan Qingcheng's name. Thinking of this, Xiao Lianqiao immediately stood up and went to the registration place. A smug look flashed across Jian Zhu's face. She sneered in her heart. Idiot. However, only such an idiot would be useful. It was just the right time to get rid of Yan Qingqing. After a while, Xiao Lianxiao returned excitedly. It was obvious that the matter had been accomplished. She thought of the shock and fear that Yan Qingqing would feel when she heard her name later. She felt extremely comfortable. She was really looking forward to it. Yun Chujio was completely unaware of this. This fellow was trying his best to study the jade talisman carving method recorded on the sheepskin scroll. He had gained a lot of new insights when he compared it to the talisman and immortal rank inheritance that the heavenly Tao cliff had given her. Initially, she did not see anything special about those immortal rank inheritances. However, at this moment, she could feel the profundity and uniqueness within them. Although with her current cultivation level, she was still unable to learn those immortal rank inheritances, she still benefited greatly from comparing them. At this time, City Lord Murong was already making his opening remarks. It was nothing more than a set of words. After City Lord Murong finished speaking, he invited President Gu and President Yu to have a few more words. Only then did the person hosting the competition begin to read out the rules of the spiritual power competition. As long as it was the first round, the top 50 students could participate in the spiritual power competition and draw lots to decide the two sides. After a few rounds, the top 10 would be decided and each of them would be awarded points. After the host finished explaining the rules, he began to announce the names of the two academies. Divine Enlightenment Academy, Lan Luochen, Guanzijia. 10 Directions Academy, Nangong Shi, Jiang Shuangli. Yan Qingqing. President Gu frowned. Yan Qingqing had promised him before, why did she go to register now? How naughty! Ding Wenru pulled He Xinjiu, who was still studying hard, with a dumbfounded look on her face. Ching Ching, when did you go to register? He Xinjiu was at a loss. Register? What registration? The registration for the spiritual power competition. The host said your name just now. Look, Nangong Shi and the others are already on stage. I guess they will urge you to go on stage soon. He Xinjiu thought for a moment and knew that she had been framed. Moreover, it was most likely done by the two bastards, Xiao Lianqiao and Jian Zhuyu. If it was before, it would have been fine if there was a feud between Bei Yu and the others. But now that Bei Yu was already dead, the two of them were still unwilling to let it go. They were really courting death. Chapter 59-55. Drawing lots. Just as Yun Chujio was thinking about it, she heard Xiao Lianqiao snicker. Yan Qingqing, you are representing the face of the 10 Directions Academy. Don't embarrass yourself. Yun Chujio glanced at Xiao Lianqiao indifferently and spat out 2 words, idiot. Xiao Lianqiao stood up abruptly. You dare to scold me? Yun Chujio couldn't be bothered with her. This idiot was probably used by Jian Zhuyu again. At this time, the host on the stage said, Yan Qingqing of the 10 Directions Academy, please go on the stage immediately. Yun Chujio had no choice but to put the sheepskin scroll into her storage ring and go on the stage. This guy had already thought it through. When she was drawn later, she would casually make a few moves and admit defeat. Anyway, she was a waste, so she didn't miss this chance. With this thought, this fellow had the leisure to look around. He saw that there were a total of 15 people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy, and there were only 11 people from the 10 Directions Academy, including her. There was no other way. In the first round, there were 34 people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy who entered the top 50, and 16 people from the 10 Directions Academy. Jian Zhuyu and the others still had to conserve their strength to compete in alchemy and talisman making. It was already very good that 11 people could enter. The people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy were all high and mighty because they felt that victory was within their grasp. If they were lucky, the top 10 would all be people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy. When the host saw that everyone had arrived, he began to draw lots. Everyone followed the draw to fight. As there were 5 more people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy, the 5 people who drew empty lots went straight to the next round. It was simply wonderful. The host began to announce the specific battle groups. Yun Chujio could not help but frown when she heard her opponent. It was really a narrow road for enemies. She had actually drawn Guan Zijie, and it was the first group. Previously in the Ruins of Miracles, Guan Zijie had been badly burned by the fire spat out by the skeleton tiger. He hated Yun Chujio to the bone. Now that he saw that his opponent was Yun Chujio, he immediately revealed a sinister smile. After the host announced the start of the competition, Guan Zijie had a sinister smile on his face. Yan Qingqing, you still have the guts to go on stage with your useless cultivation? You're really stupid. Kneel down and cow to me 3 times right now, and I'll let you off the stage safely. If not, it won't be good if I kill you in a moment of heavy hand. Yun Chujio originally wanted to admit defeat after a few moves, but it was clear that Guan Zijie would not give her such a chance. This fellow had a headache. Why was it so hard for her to keep a low profile? She just wanted to be a quiet audience. Why did she have to be the main character? Others naturally didn't know that this fellow's inner drama was so rich. Seeing her stiff face, they thought that she was afraid. President Gu sighed in his heart. Now you know fear. What did you do before? Since you don't have the guts to compete, don't sign up. But now, it didn't matter that she lost miserably. After all, everyone knew that she was a good for nothing. The key was that the first round was very important. Who wouldn't want to start off with a good start? This round's loss was very tragic. It was definitely a fatal blow to the morale. This troublemaker was really restless. President Yu was in a good mood. Although Guan Zijie had embarrassed himself at the welcoming banquet, it was only a competition of movement techniques after all. Today's competition could use spirit beasts. He was sure to win. Xiao Lianqiao was extremely excited. She deserved it. She really deserved it. She actually met Guan Zijie. This Yan Qingcheng was really unlucky. Ding Wenru clenched her fists and looked at him worriedly. Although she knew that Yun Chujio was not as useless as she appeared to be, could she be Guan Ziji's opponent? Chapter 59-56, I alone am enough. Yan Qingcheng, have you thought about it? Why aren't you kneeling down and kowtowing? If you delay any longer, I won't give you this chance, Guan Zijia said arrogantly. He had been making a fool of himself recently. Today, he could finally hold his head up high. Naturally, he was very proud. He felt that he was at level 5 of the divine summoning, while Yun Chujio was only at level 1 of the divine summoning. He could easily win. Yun Chujio glanced at him. Isn't it good to be alive? Why are you tirelessly courting death? Guan Zijia was so angry that he was twitching. Good, you stinky girl. You really won't shed tears until you see the coffin. They'll send you on your way right now. Guan Zijia had learned his lesson from the previous match with Ding Wenru. He immediately released his huge spiritual bear. The huge bear's 2 claws had already materialized and looked exceptionally powerful. Everyone looked at Yun Chujio. Someone who knew about it curled his lips and said, "It said that Yan Qingcheng's spiritual power beast is a claw. It's so hilarious." Really? It can only materialize a claw? It can't even materialize an entire spiritual power beast? Isn't this too useless? Who says so? The 10 Directions Academy is getting worse and worse. Such trash is actually qualified to participate in the 100-year competition. Guan Zijia had also read Yun Chujio's introduction in the Book of Heroes. He curled his lips and said, "Yan Qingcheng, release your claws." Yun Chujio glanced at him, then straightened her back and said, "To deal with a trash like you, I don't need to release a spiritual beast. I'm enough alone." This guy wanted to release Dehua, but although Dehua's color had changed, it was inevitable that Lan Luochen and the people from the Divine Devil Hall would recognize it, so it was better not to release it. This fellow's intestines were turning green with regret. Why was the first spirit beast she thought of back then a pig? Even if it was a donkey. Guan Zijia saw how arrogant Yun Chujio was. He snorted coldly and directly directed his huge spirit bear to attack Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio jumped to the side and dodged the huge spirit bear's claws. The huge spirit bear naturally would not give up and once again struck at Yun Chujio with its claws. Yun Chujio once again nimbly dodged. The man and the bear fought at the same spot. Guan Zijia stood at the back and did not make a move. He was certain that Yun Chujio would not be a match for the giant spiritual bear. He was happy to watch the show. However, until the giant spiritual bear dissipated, Yun Chujio was not injured. She did not even fight back. She just relied on dodging to drag the giant spiritual bear away. The surrounding people could not help but look at Yun Chujio in a new light. Not to mention other things, this Yan Qingcheng's movement technique was very fast. It seemed that she was on par with people at the 6th or 7th level of the divine summoning. Guan Zijia could not help but feel a little angry when he heard the discussions of the crowd. After releasing the huge spiritual bear again, he also joined the battle. In this way, Yun Chujio was on the passive side. This fellow thought to himself, if she let Xiao Hanyo curse, she could take care of this Guan Zijia. However, if the next person she met was also difficult to deal with, wouldn't she have no trump card? The spiritual power competition did not allow the use of talismans, pills, and the like. How could she defeat Guan Zijia? The Guai Chao in her dantian started to act cute, but Yun Chujio mercilessly rejected it. What a joke! If she let this guy out, wouldn't her identity be revealed? Goei Batsao could shrink, but if someone found out that it had such an ability, the consequences would be unimaginable. What should she do? Just as the fellow was worrying, the palm of his left hand heated up slightly, and Yun Chujio's eyes lit up. Chapter 5957 Yan Qingcheng wins. Xiao Chou Zhu, you're awake? He Xinjiao asked excitedly while fighting with Guan Zijia. Buddha's candle had been dormant for a long time, but he didn't expect to wake up at this critical moment. Buddha's candle said proudly, "Do you miss me a lot? Is none of those trash more powerful than me?" Do you only know how to cherish it after losing it? Yun Chujio rolled her eyes inwardly, but now was not the time to clean it up. She said, "Let's not talk about this for now. Hurry up and possess him so that I can torture him to death. It takes a lot of psyche power to possess him at once. Is it easy for me to cultivate such a little psyche power? I'm not going. If you want to go, go by yourself." Buddha's candle said unhappily. Hei Shinjio was so angry that she was twitching. Who was the master? Just as Hei Shinjio was about to get angry, Buddha's candle said smugly, "I'm different from before. Even if I don't possess him, as long as he smells my Buddha's incense, he will be in a trance for a moment." Yun Chujio did not have the time to listen to its bragging. She said anxiously, "Since you have the ability, why don't you show it now?" Buddha's candle also knew that the situation was urgent. Although it had not had enough of bragging, it still released the Buddha's incense when Yun Chujio reached out her left hand to slap Guan Zijia. Guan Zijia saw that Yun Chujio was gradually falling into a disadvantageous position, and his heart was filled with pride. Who would have thought that his mind would actually go blank for a moment? Although it was only for a moment, it was enough to be fatal. He was stunned on the spot. Yun Chujio's palm had really hit his face. He did not have any spiritual power to protect his body, and his entire body fell down the competition stage like a kite with a broken string. He died immediately. Everyone was shocked by this change. What was going on? Guan Zijie had the absolute advantage earlier. How could he be killed by Yan Qingqing all of a sudden? Was Guan Zijie stupid? Why didn't he dodge? Why didn't he use the spiritual power to protect his body? Why did he just let Yan Qingqing beat him foolishly? Immediately, people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy shouted that Yan Qingqing had cheated. She must have used illegal poisons, jade talismans, or spiritual weapons. Otherwise, Guan Zijie would not have died tragically. Yun Chujio curled her lips and said to the host, "Since the people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy suspect me of cheating, then please check Guan Zijie's body to prove my innocence." Even without Yun Chujio's words, the host would also arrange for the judges to check Guan Zijie's body. After all, Guan Zijie's defeat was very strange. After a round of examination, no problem was found. Could it be that Guan Zijie was sick? Or was it an intermittent illness? That was why it was like this? By the way, wasn't Guan Zijie burned by the skeleton tiger's fire in the ruin of miracles? Could it be that there are sequelae? You have a point. No wonder he was suddenly stunned. This Yan Qingqing really got lucky. She could enter the next round so easily. Seeing that the referee was meaningless, the host announced the final result of the competition. Yan Qingqing of the 10-Directional Academy had won. The students of the 10-Directional Academy immediately burst into cheers. Although Yan Qingqing was usually not liked, at this time, no one would care about those small feuds. President Gu smiled at President Yu. "President Yu, I didn't expect that the most useless student of the 10-Directional Academy would win. I'm sorry for making a fool of myself." President Ye's face froze and he said indifferently, "President Gu, the competition has just begun. Don't be happy too early." Chapter 59-58 was in a dire situation. President Gu smiled nonchalantly when he heard President Ye's words. Although he still lost in the end, he was still in a good mood. It seemed that Yan Qingqing, the troublemaker, was really lucky to be able to surprise him every time. Hei Shinjio saw that the results of the competition had already been announced. She calmly got off the stage and Buddha's candle kept taking credit. How is it? How is it? Am I very good? Am I 100 times better than the other idiots? Seeing Buddha's candle's smug look, Buttface said unhappily, "Tooth, what's the point of being smug? It's just a blind cat meeting a dead rat. You're just jealous. I'm better than you, and am more pampered than you. You're eating for free, you trash." Buddha's candle said arrogantly. Anyway, it was not in the spiritual beast bag. Those idiots could not even find a way to settle the score with it, so what was it afraid of? Hei Shinjio saw that the two were quarreling nonstop, and Hun Dun, that troublemaker, also had the tendency to join in the scolding battle. She simply cut off the spiritual connection between them, and their ears were instantly silenced. She returned to her seat, and Ding Wenru said excitedly, "Qingqing, you're really amazing." Xiao Lianxiao pouted and said, "TSK, what's there to be proud of? It's just dog shit and luck. It's already good enough to be able to leave the stage alive in the next round." Ding Wenru glared at Xiao Lianxiao and said, "Xiao Lianxiao, do you wish for the 10 Directions Academy to lose? Otherwise, why would Qingqing taunt you when she won?" Xiao Lianxiao choked on her words. Jian Zhuyu said from the side, "Lianxiao is also kind-hearted. She is worried that Yan Qingqing will be in danger in the next round, but her tone is a little hasty." Yes, that's what I mean. Don't judge a gentleman by his petty heart," Xiao Lianxiao said. Ding Wenru snorted and ignored her. She turned to Yun Chujiu and said, "Qingqing, have a good rest. The next round will probably not start for a long time." Yun Chujiu nodded, ate a spirit fruit, and then looked at the competition stage. The first round of the competition didn't end until noon. The Divine Enlightenment Academy had the absolute advantage. Among the 11 matches, only Yan Qingqing, Nan Gongshi, and Jiang Shuangli had won. The rest of them had all lost miserably. President Gus' face immediately turned ugly. Although he had expected to lose, he had never expected to lose so miserably. It was too embarrassing. Seeing him like this, President Yu naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity to kick him while he was down. He said with a slightly provocative tone, "President Gu, it seems that the students of the 10 Directional Academy are getting worse and worse each year. I remember that you were at least stronger than this time in the last century grand competition." President Gu resisted the impulse to beat him up and said stiffly, "Just like you said, what's the rush? Isn't it not the end yet?" President Yu pursed his lips. In this round, the Divine Enlightenment Academy had advanced 8 students. Including the 5 who were not in the round, there were a total of 13 people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy who had advanced to the next round. And the 10 Directions Academy only had 3 people. It was estimated that these 3 people would be eliminated in the second round of the competition. When that time came, the Divine Enlightenment Academy would sweep the top 10 places. It was simply exhilarating. President Gu also thought of this, and his mood was very heavy. If the top 10 places were taken by the Divine Enlightenment Academy, the 10 Directions Academy would be too shameful. The 2 academies were originally evenly matched. However, after the 100-year competition, the Divine Enlightenment Academy would really be able to suppress the 10 Directions Academy. Their days in the future would be difficult. Chapter 59:59. A crushing defeat. The more President Gu thought about it, the heavier his mood became. His gaze fell on Yan Qingqing and the other 2 on the stage. It would be great if these 3 could create a miracle. There was no need for them to obtain first place. Even if they could enter the top 10, it would still be fine. But would it work? Chancellor Ren and the others from the 10 Directions Academy also had ugly expressions on their faces, as if they were sitting on pins and needles. At this moment, they were truly regretting the death of Beiyu. If Beiyu was here, they could at least fight with Lan Luoqin, and the situation would not be so ugly. On the stage, Nan Gongshi and Jiang Shuangli looked very serious. They knew the responsibility they were shouldering, but unfortunately, one of them was good at refining weapons, while the other was good at beast taming. Their spiritual power cultivation was not too outstanding. They did not have much confidence in the following competition. Hei Xinjiu did not feel any psychological burden. After all, she was trash. If she lost, so be it. Moreover, she had just unlocked the Buddha's candle's new skill. Not to mention whether she could win or not, at least she would have enough time to escape. Since the 10 Directions Academy only had 3 people in this round, the Divine Enlightenment Academy only needed 3 people to fight. Immediately, everyone began to draw lots. Hei Xinjiu saw the 3 on the lot. It seemed that she would be the last one to fight in this round. The one who drew Yun Chujiu was a male student from the Divine Enlightenment Academy. He had a strong back and a strong build. He looked at Yun Chujiu contemptuously. He would definitely win this round. Yun Chujiu ignored him and directly went down the competition stage. Anyway, she was in the third group. It would probably take a while before she got her turn. She returned to her seat and sat down. She saw Ding Wenru holding the Book of Heroes with a worried look on her face. Qing Cheng, Nan Gongshi, and Jiang Shuangli will probably lose. The two people who were fighting with them were both at the 6th level of the spirit summoning realm, one level higher than them. Moreover, their spiritual roots were also restraining them. They were really unlucky, Ding Wenru said worriedly. Yun Chujio took the Book of Heroes and looked at it. Ding Wenru was right. It seemed that Nan Gongshi and Jiang Shuangli were both doomed. However, she had told the two of them that winning or losing was secondary and survival was more important. The two of them would not be seriously injured. As expected, in the first group, Jiang Shuangli was soon at a disadvantage. In the end, he lost and was SL. In the second group, Nan Gongshi's opponent was Duan Li from the Divine Enlightenment Academy. Although Nan Gongshi tried his best, he was still at a disadvantage. He could have found an opportunity to admit defeat as soon as possible, but he thought that he and Yen Qingqing were the only two people left in the 10 Directions Academy. Although Yen Qingqing was not as simple as she looked, she might not be able to win. If he lost again, wouldn't the 10 Directions Academy be completely wiped out? Therefore, despite being at a disadvantage, she was still struggling despite being injured. In the end, she couldn't take it anymore and jumped to the side with all her strength. She cupped her fists and wanted to admit defeat, but she didn't expect Duan Li to take advantage of this opportunity to attack Nan Gongshi's vital points. Nan Gongshi hurriedly raised his spirit energy shield and activated the defensive spirit tool on his body. Despite this, he still spat out a mouthful of blood and fell below the competition stage. Ding Wenru immediately cried out in surprise and ran toward Nan Gongshi. Yun Chujio also quickly followed. Nan Gongshi's injuries weren't light, but fortunately his life wasn't in danger, so he was sent back to his residence. Yun Chujio saw that Ding Wenru was very worried, so she asked her to go back with her. At this time, Duan Li, who was on the stage, was boasting, "The 10 Directional Academy is only SOSO. In this 100-year competition, our Divine Enlightenment Academy will definitely take the top 10 places. In the future, the 10 Directional Academy is not worthy to be on par with our Divine Enlightenment Academy." Chapter 5960, The Three Elders. The rest of the people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy also echoed. They were saying that the 10 Directions Academy was a bunch of trash and was getting worse and worse. President Gus's face was livid, but he could not compete with a bunch of students because of his identity. President Yu was very pleased with himself. He had no intention of stopping them. Moreover, what the students said was right. The 10 Directions Academy only had one good-for-nothing, Yen Qingqing. Although they had won against Guan Zijie by luck, it was just dog-shit luck. They would definitely not enter the next round. The Divine Enlightenment Academy had not only taken the top 10, but also the top 13. With such an overwhelming advantage, how could the 10 Directions Academy compete with the Divine Enlightenment Academy? There was no comparison at all. 3 old men had appeared behind the bustling crowd. All 3 of them wore bamboo hats and their auras were nothing special, so they did not attract the attention of others. One of the old men lowered his voice and said proudly, "Tisliske, your 10 Directions Academy is really getting worse year by year. Last time I remember, it wasn't this miserable. I think it's better to merge the 2 academies in the future so that your 10 Directions Academy won't lose face. Qichin, you old fart. Try spouting nonsense again." The one who spoke was the short elder of the 10 Directions Academy. The elder called Qichin was the supreme elder of the Divine Enlightenment Academy. He was about the same age as the short elder and their cultivation levels were almost the same. They liked to compare with each other. However, the recent 100-year competitions of the 10 Directions Academy were getting worse each time. The short elder and the tall elder had been ridiculed by Qichin many times. Chu Feng, Zhuang Mu, don't be unconvinced. As you have seen, the 10 Directions Academy only has that little trash left. He definitely won't be able to enter the next round, Qichin said proudly. Chu Feng was the name of the short old man while Zhuang Mu was the name of the tall old man. In this world, only Chichen could call them by their names. When Chu Feng heard Chichen call Yun Chujio a little trash, he became even angrier. No matter how weak that little trash was, she was still a student of their primal academy. It was fine if he called her by her name, but why did Chichen call her a little trash? Chu Feng was about to argue with Chichen when he saw a lithe figure jump onto the competition stage. Yun Chujio looked at Duan Li coldly. Duan Li, right? Just you wait, we will meet sooner or later. Duan Li curled his lips. Yan Qingqing, are you crazy? After all, your 10 Directions Academy is trash, there is no need for you. Ha! Yun Chujio did not get angry. Instead, she laughed. You are wrong. The 10 Directions Academy only has one trash, and that is me, Yan Qingqing. Just watch with your dog eyes. Even if I am a trash, I can still defeat you. I alone will be enough to deal with you bunch of idiots. Yun Chujio actually did not have much confidence in her words. It was easy to deal with others, but the main point was that Lan Luochen was really hard to deal with. However, now that the 10 Directions Academy was in such an ugly situation, she had to say a few words to regain some face. Moreover, she didn't believe that she was so unlucky and would soon face Lan Luochen. If she were to face Lan Luochen, at worst, she would just admit defeat. After hearing Yun Chujio's words, Duan Li burst into laughter again. He felt that Yun Chujio was simply dreaming. A trash like her couldn't even defeat Xiong Wang, who was going to fight her in a while. Chapter 5961. Again, Duan Li was about to mock Yun Chujio when the host announced the start of the third group battle. He snorted and said to Xiong Wang, I'll leave Yan Qingqing to you. Xiong Wang was tall and strong. He did not take Yun Chujio seriously at all. He grinned and said, just you wait and see. I'll beat her to the ground in 15 minutes. The rest of the people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy also began to clamor. They all felt that Yun Chujio would be defeated very soon. Seeing this, Chichen clicked his tongue and said, oh my, that little trash is really brave. As expected of your primal academy. She doesn't have any self-awareness at all. Chu Feng was naturally very angry, but he also felt that Yun Chujio had no way to win. He could only stare and sulk. At this moment, Xiong Wang had already released his spiritual beast. It was a huge spiritual tiger, and 2 of its claws had materialized and were very ferocious. Yan Qingqing, release your useless claws. Ha! Xiong Wang shouted complacently. Hei Xinjiao stood with her hands behind her back and said indifferently, there's no need for a spiritual beast to deal with trash like you. If you can do it, don't waste your time. Xiong Wang was furious when he saw Yun Chujio's arrogance. He immediately jumped up and attacked Yun Chujio with his spiritual tiger. Yun Chujio complained in her heart. Damn it. If it weren't for the fact that she was afraid that the blue dregs would see through her, she would have released De Hua. She was really depressed. Xiong Wang's cultivation was obviously stronger than Guanziji's, so Yun Chujio was soon at a disadvantage. Chichen glanced at Chu Feng, who was clenching his fist. Chu Feng, I'm not laughing at you, but why do you think your primal institution has recruited such a trash student? It can't be because your reputations are too bad that no one is willing to apply for the primal institution, right? Haha. Chu Feng clenched his fist so hard that it made cracking sounds. If it wasn't for the fact that he was in public, he would definitely teach this old fellow a lesson. In his heart, he was also very angry at Yun Chujio. Was this little trash stupid? Her cultivation was not as high as the bear, but she did not even use her spiritual beast. How could she be so stupid? At this time, Yun Chujio on the stage was forced back by Xiong Wang and his spiritual beast. She was about to reach the edge of the stage and would fall off the stage soon. Chu Feng could already imagine the arrogance of the 10 Directions Academy when they completely annihilated Chichen. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, he heard the exclamations of the crowd. His heart sank. It was over. The little trash must have fallen off the competition stage. He did not know if the fall was serious or not. However, when he focused his eyes, he saw something. That little trash was standing perfectly fine on the stage. Could it be that the one who fell off was that bear? He took a closer look and it was really him. He saw that Xiong Wang was standing under the stage with a blank look on his face. He was clearly a little dumbfounded and did not know how he fell down. Chu Feng was stunned for a moment before he laughed out loud. "Chi-Chen, that old fellow, you've slapped your face, right? You even said that the little girl was a little trash, but she just had to win. Don't you think it's infuriating?" Chi-Chen's expression was very ugly. He had been staring at the competition on the stage. Xiong Wang clearly had the advantage. How could he suddenly lose? Could it be that that little trash cheated? Many people had the same thoughts as Chi-Chen. However, a few judges had examined Xiong Wang's body and asked him some information. They determined that Yan Qingqing did not cheat. After receiving a definite answer, the host announced loudly, "In this group, Yan Qingqing of the Academy of 10 Directions wins." Chapter 5962 had won again. Seeing that Yun Chujio had miraculously won again, President Gu was both emotional and happy. No matter what, he had finally helped the 10 Directions Academy regain some face. Although President Yu was a little displeased, he did not mind. There were still 12 people in the Divine Enlightenment Academy, but only Yan Qingqing was left in the 10 Directions Academy. Even if she was a little strange, she would still be exhausted to death. The host did not give Yun Chujio time to rest and directly carried out the next round of drawing lots. Yun Chujio silently prayed in her heart that she would not draw blue dregs. The remaining people could draw whoever they wanted. After all, she had the clown candle as a cheating weapon. It would be best if she drew Duan Li. That way, she would be able to avenge Nangongshi. She did not know if this guy's prayers had worked, but he really did draw Duan Li. This fellow immediately narrowed his eyes and said to Duan Li, "Are you going to die by yourself, or do you want me to kill you?" Duan Li was so angry that he laughed instead. "Yan Qingqing, I admit that your luck is not bad. You've won 2 rounds consecutively by luck, but this time, you're going to lose for sure." After he finished speaking, he did not waste any more words with Yun Chujio and directly released his spirit energy mink. His spirit energy mink's 3 claws had already materialized. It was obvious that his cultivation was much stronger than Xiong Wang from before. Yun Chujio's cultivation level was not as high as Duan Li's, so she could not release De Hua. In addition, she had used up a lot of her physical strength. However, she was already at a disadvantage after a dozen moves. Yun Chujio had no choice but to use the same trick again. However, Duan Li was much more cautious than Xiong Wang and Guan Zijie. He had been using his spirit energy to protect his body. Although Yun Chujio took advantage of the time when he was still in a daze to hit his palm, Duan Li was not in much danger. Yun Chujio could only say to Buddha's candle, "Again." Buddha's candle stuttered, "Master, I'm sorry. My spiritual power is limited. Wait for me to cultivate for a few days before I play with you." Yun Chujio, she knew that all of them were fucking swindlers. She had no choice but to use the curse of Xiao Hanyo. No matter what, she had to get rid of Duan Li first. Otherwise, based on his ruthless character, he would not give her a chance to live. Yun Chujio pretended to be defeated and revealed a flaw. Although Duan Li was cautious, his desire to win still fell into the trap. Originally, with his cultivation, he would not be seriously injured even if he fell into the trap. The bad thing was that Yun Chujio had used Xiao Hanyo's curse. When he retreated, he fell directly onto his back. Yun Chujio naturally would not let go of such a good opportunity. A sword appeared in her hand and directly cut Duan Li's throat. The scene was deathly silent. Everyone couldn't believe their eyes. This Yan Qingqing actually won again. How was this possible? However, this was the truth. Chu Feng's old eyes widened and he rubbed them a few times before he confirmed that he wasn't wrong. This little trash actually won another round miraculously. As expected of a student from the primal region. She was indeed 100 times stronger than the others. So what if her cultivation was low? She still won. Chi-Chen's face was ashen as he squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. There's something fishy about her win, she must be cheating. Chu Feng was immediately unhappy. You old fart. Who are you calling cheating? Little trash, the little girl won fair and square. How did she cheat? Don't be a sore loser. She didn't cheat? Then explain to me why Duanli fell on his back. People make mistakes, horses make mistakes. Isn't it normal for him to trip himself in a panic? In the end, he underestimated his opponent. The little girl was obviously pretending to reveal a flaw. Who was he to blame for being fooled? Chu Feng snorted. Qi Chen was so angry that he gritted his teeth, but he had to admit that if Duanli didn't underestimate his opponent, he wouldn't have lost. However, did that little trash really not cheat? Chapter 5963. She was not a fool. After repeated inspections by the judges, they did not find anything wrong with the cause of Duanli's death. The MC had no choice but to announce, in this round, Yan Qingqing of the 10-Directional Academy wins. Although the people of the 10-Directional Academy also felt that Yan Qingqing's victory was somewhat inexplicable, but no matter what, the 10-Directional Academy only had one single sapling left, so they were naturally very happy. President Yu furrowed his brows tightly. Seeing President Gus's smiling face, he couldn't help but say in a strange tone, President Gu, I didn't expect that your Yan Qingqing's luck is actually quite good. However, our Divine Enlightenment Academy still has 11 people. If Yan Qingqing wants to enter the top 10, she needs to win at least 2 more rounds. Putting her cultivation aside, I reckon that her physical strength can't support her to last 2 more rounds, right? President Gus's smile froze on his face. That's right. Yan Qingqing had already fought 3 rounds, especially the last 2 rounds. Would her stamina be able to keep up? Besides, her luck would run out eventually. Would she still be able to win the next round? On the stage, He Xinjiu was not confident either. Her stamina was not a problem. After all, Goei Batsao was constantly replenishing her stamina. Moreover, she did not expend much energy in the previous 2 rounds. She had relied on her intelligence to win. However, she could not use Buddha's candle and Xiao Hanio's skills anymore. What would she rely on to win the next round? Why not just admit defeat? Just as Yun Chujio was pondering, the host asked her to draw again. This fellow drew a lot casually. She did not feel any psychological burden. Anyway, no matter who she drew, she would admit defeat after a few strokes. Yan Qingqing, I didn't expect you to win 2 rounds in a row. You won't be able to pass this round so easily. The person who spoke was a woman with an extraordinary appearance. However, the gaze she gave Yun Chujio was filled with disdain and viciousness, and there was also a hint of jealousy mixed within. Yun Chujio had seen this woman's introduction in the Atlas of Heroes. Fan Luyun was one of the 4 fairies of the Divine Enlightenment continent. He was at the 6th level of the Divine Summoning Realm and had a water spirit root. Yun Chujio was not unfamiliar with the way she looked at her, because that was how Xiao Lianxiao and Jian Zhuyu looked at her. It was really strange. Why was this little bitch looking at her like that? Fan Luyun saw that Yun Chujio did not say anything but looked at her like she was looking at a lunatic. He could not help but become angry out of embarrassment and immediately released his spiritual water body. The huge mouth of the spiritual water body immediately came towards Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio quickly dodged it and complained in her heart. This little bitch clearly had enmity towards her. She was afraid that even if she wanted to admit defeat, it would not be so easy. If she really could not, she might as well just jump off the competition stage. This fellow made up her mind and prepared to find an opportunity to jump off the competition stage. Nothing was more important than her life. She was not an idiot. Therefore, this fellow deliberately retreated to the edge of the competition stage. To outsiders, she was forced back by Fan Luyun and was in danger. They were sure that she would lose very soon. Qi Chen snorted. Chu Feng, this time, that little trash will definitely lose. I want to see what other tricks she has up her sleeves. If I find evidence of her cheating, I want to see where your old face will go. Yo, you old fart, can't afford to lose? Also, watch your words, don't call her a little trash. She's a little trash. How is she a little trash? Chu Feng curled his lips and said. Qi Chen didn't reply. His attention was on the competition stage, staring at Yun Chujia's every move. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.